Hello, hello. So I'm really excited that you guys are joining me today. I have a really special friend coming on. Her name is Dr. Karin. She is a transformational coach and an award-winning author, and she really has done the work to get her PhD and study a lot about relationships, health, and mindset. And so I'm so excited to bring her on. I hope you guys come prepared with a lot of questions. Why is this coming to the surface? Why am I bringing this? I talk about the body all the time, and I talk about getting into your own body, listening to your own body, and how you can truly help yourself. But the thing is, especially when we're talking about pain, the body and the mind are so interconnected. And if we're not addressing both, then we're missing a whole aspect of what's actually happening in our body. And recently, I've been able to discover myself that when I truly tune in and listen to my inner intuition, not only what my body is telling me physically, but what it is telling me mentally, it opens up a whole new capacity for me. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys are able to ask all the questions, and we're so excited to dive in and really answer them all for you. I'm so excited that she's coming on. Let's see. Hi!
How are you, girl?
Yay! I'm so good. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited. Let's get at the right level here. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
me too.
I feel like we're on the Brady Bunch.
I know, exactly. Going down and up. All right, so give everyone a brief overview of who you are, what your PhD is in, what you've studied, how you came to study it. I think is also very interesting. Yeah. Your own story.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm so grateful to be here. I think this conversation is going to be really healing for a lot of people, and I'm just really blessed to be in this light with you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yes. All love. So I have a doctorate in counseling, and what Jen is referring to is that I went through a really traumatic divorce back when I was in my 20s. I was married to a professional athlete here in Atlanta. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and went through a really public divorce, and it put me down and out for a number of years, sent me into a depression, and I couldn't make sense of it, religiously or mentally or emotionally. And so I understood what it felt like to bottom out, and I felt very, very isolated. And there was just this whole host of experiences that I'd never been through before. And so I wanted to really understand once I came out of that darkness, because it was a really dark place for a while. I decided that I really wanted to understand what happened to me mentally and emotionally. So I decided to go back to school to become a counselor. Before I was a early childhood teacher. I taught kids. And something in my soul was you were meant to help people. Oh, more Atlanta people in the house. Hi. So I decided to go back to train to be a therapist for adults. So I was at first intending on just getting a master's, and not that there's any just about it. That was a very big endeavor. And I went to weekend school, and I just committed to turning my pain into purpose. And I knew I wanted to write. And so I knew to be taken seriously, I probably needed more letters after my name. And I also wanted to understand trauma, and I wanted to understand relationships more, and I wanted to understand masculinity. And so I started studying these things that had really confused me and had bottomed me out. I studied trauma, PTSD, depression. So getting out of the master's, I discovered this whole new side of myself and that I didn't know really existed. And so I discovered that I was really good at doing clinical work and at writing research and studying people's stories and listening to people's stories, right? And that's a lot of what you do too. I mean, even though you're in there for a lot of medical reasons, you're getting a whole person. And so I decided to continue. And so I went and got my PhD in counseling, education, and practice. So I was still doing teaching of counselors. And so what I dove into was I dove into fidelity and infidelity, and I did more trauma research, and I got on I got on these research committees with sexuality, and I just took a really deep dive into understanding more of things that I was raised in this really conservative home, and I never would have thought I'd be studying sexuality, and there I was 15 years later having my heart broken. And then my mind just opened up and started really looking at these corners of the world that I never thought I was going to be looking at. But looking back, I know it was because of the the trauma and the pain that I went through ended up becoming a path to my purpose. And now I wrote a book called The Fatherless Daughter Project. It came out 2 years ago, and it was all about repeating patterns in relationships that women often do because of unfulfilled needs that they didn't have met because their father was absent or checked out. Now I'm writing a book on recovering from relationship loss. And so, you know, at the end of the day, now that I've been through all of that, like what I really like to focus on is reminding, it's not just women, this is like men too, it's everybody.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Who you really are. And so I'm really big into now, like, I mean, when I finally got my answers spiritually, I had a spiritual awakening and I started understanding the energy of the soul and law of attraction. I started understanding more of the spiritual realm of relationships. So that then informed my clinical research. And I really put all this together and I just gained this more of a global understanding of what it really takes to get back on your feet, your heart back together, and then to go back into the world as a healthy being to attract the relationship that you really deserve.
Yeah, I mean, because that's huge, especially when there is heartbreak and there is betrayal and deceit, and you don't know how to really go back into that. And I think something that's come up for me as well that's been really interesting is the manipulation that you have to also learn how to navigate past and not get swept up into again.
Yeah, you know, so much of the pain, you know, when you're, so I do want to say, if you've been traumatized and you're in a situation where there's a lot of pain and pain is coming up, you need to be telling your story in a safe place. And this is really important to point out because I'm going to talk a lot about energy and what is later. But, you know, I went through PTSD. I mean, I was diagnosed with it after my first divorce. I mean, it was, so this is interesting for your viewers to hear. So women specifically, when we're hurt emotionally, it actually triggers the same brain sensors as if you've been in a traumatic accident and you've like severed a limb. It's the same brain. The neurotransmitters that get popping are the ones that are the same pain centers as severe physical pain for women. So I'm sorry, I'm at home and I've got 2 dogs. So there's no like guilt or regret over really being in a place of pain or like judging yourself or I shouldn't be hurt this much. You're hurting in such a such a full capacity of pain because your body is experiencing it like you've had a severe injury. So you need to be telling your story in a safe place. Like part of why I became a therapist, because like sitting on my therapist's couch and just retelling until I didn't need to retell it anymore is super important. So you can get to the place then, you know, where like that's not what you feel like is in front of you anymore, you know, but there is healing that's needed when you've been traumatized, right? So then moving forward, and if you've had an experience where there's been betrayal, you know, I look now at energy, and I know just as a foundation of spiritual practice now that we're actually attracting into our life that which matches us, okay? So every experience that we go through is part of our soul calling in as the place. And this can be hard for people to hear that are hurting. Yeah. But there's a soul agreement that there is going to be something, even though, and this is honestly what brought me healing finally, because I couldn't make mental sense of someone doing these things to me, right? But the truth is, like, life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. And like, we have to come to a place where we realize that our intuition is our guidance, it's our lighthouse, it's our inner shaman. And so, you know, looking back at those situations where you've been hurt, get your therapy, like get your soothing on, like get your heart healed. But you will recognize once you get more clarity and you can look back, it's like, you know what, like I knew, right? So looking back, I think brings you really a lot of, you can come into your own light and into your power by realizing how brilliant you are, like no regret over how long you stayed or what you should have or could have done. No, like you're in the exact spot you're supposed to be in. It wasn't time yet, but your soul chose that experience. So you could grow. So like, I mean, looking at me now, I work with clients and I never go through this, and I'm now writing a second book on it, and I get to bring healing and life back into the world. And I know you're using your truth now. It's like, I never would have been here had I not gone through it. You know, so there's a place of clarity. And I think that to flip it and look back and be like, like how brilliant really was I? If I had listened to what my intuition was telling me, you know, back then, and recognize that you actually like probably knew more than you allowed yourself to know, you know, And so taking that on as like a sign of your inner brilliance, I think is a good way to find healing and power instead of letting someone else have your power.
Totally. And I think that has been like the most powerful thing to me, is to be able to say, oh no, you're trustworthy. Like your intuition knows, and you can trust that.
Yeah.
And it did take an experience for me to snap back into that and really be able to see that and feel that and understand it and unleash it and free it. So for me, it, you know, I know why it happened for me, and I'm super extremely grateful for it. Now, do you think that has to happen for people to be able to understand that? Or can we be sitting here talking into people and saying, no, you can listen, you know, more than you believe?
Yeah, I fully, I don't think you have to get burned to know that a fire is going to burn you, of course. And of course, we're not being punished either. We're just getting lessons right. And so, no, I think that definitely you can hear it. It's a matter of like where you choose to allow your life to go and how much you choose to listen to your spirit, your soul, whatever word you want to call it, your intuition, and learn to trust it. I mean, I would rather that people listening, like this is my like calling now. I don't want it to take people as long as it took me to understand my right and my value and to stop agreeing. Like you can get to a place where you're not agreeing to it before you even step into that first agreement. Like just bringing this knowledge, and you could say, oh yeah, I heard Jen and Karin talking about that. Like this is what that looks like. So listen to my soul, and I'm going to turn left instead of agreeing to it, because every situation that we're in is you're allowing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we allow people to treat us the way we allow, right? So people will show you who they are. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And a lot of us choose not to, because, we carry around, especially as healers and empaths, and we'll carry around a hope that someone's going to go back to what we thought they were, or that they're going to change because we feel like we know them better than the rest of the world. And we just believe in them because we carry a heart that, is centered on love. And so when people show us that they don't have the same capacity, we're all operating at a certain vibration, certain soul level. Okay. And so you want someone that matches you. And when someone's not able to match you in a place of truth and integrity, or whatever it is, like, first of all, let me say too, this is also like no shaming, no blaming. I know we're not doing that.
Yeah.
The people that are doing that are hurting. I mean, they're hurting. And so now, the further perspective you get away from it, it's like, wow, like move all the stuff out of the way, whatever it is, and know that there's like a wounded person there that's really functioning out of fear of control, fear of not feeling lovable, right? So maybe they're reaching in different areas, and there's not a full realization of the pain it can cause.
Right.
And so the person, though, that's going to be operating on your vibratory level when the healing comes and when the awareness comes, is the person that's going to be at that place of awareness, and that's going to be accepting, that's going to be melting into that place of integrity where you are. That vibrational match will then happen once you start asking for that to come into your life and start operating on that level.
That's brilliant. But so we were getting some questions too of people who are like, well, I'm already in a relationship. Did I necessarily call this in? Have I consciously called this in? Or if you were like, it's hard for people to still absorb, I was in a relationship where I was burned. How did I consciously call that in? How can people start to look at that and take responsibility in the growth and the lessons and where they were at? Yeah.
It's such a high level awareness when you get to that. Like, I'm so glad that you're there, because it took me like 20 years to get there and to understand, instead of like constantly blaming someone else for doing things to me, because I was there. I mean, so when you're in that place, that's victim mentality. And the problem with that, and yes, we do get hurt, and yes, there is a wrong right way to be in a relationship. But when we're always operating from a level of shame and guilt, we're actually operating at the lowest level of the energetic spectrum. And we're going to keep experiencing that and bringing people into our lives that are also operating there. So we want to expand. Oh, what did you just ask me? I'm sorry, we're not on a tangent. You're asking in relationship, calling it in. So your soul, you will always meet people that are on the same vibrational match as you. So if you believe, so people, not even just me, but me included, was raised in a home where my father was very unfaithful to my mother and very abusive. So I came into the world with the belief system that women should be treated this way, and I didn't have any self-confidence So I stepped into a marriage, even though he was famous. I mean, behind closed doors, I was being treated the way I saw my mom be treated. And then I would put on this mask and I would pretend, and so that's a big thing that I've seen with a lot of clients, and not just men, women, men included. You'll put on different faces when you go out into the world and that this illusion is true. When inside your soul's like, okay, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or what the world needs of you. We need you out of this situation because we're getting sick and we're not feeling well. And so when you call that experience in, your soul before meeting them has vibrationally attracted them because you're actually a match, right? So not that you're being punished again or that you're being forced to learn a lesson, but your soul lovingly called this in because it wanted to push you past the point. It wanted you to choose, because so we have a choice here. Choose past the point where you have that belief system. And I know it's hard to understand. It's taken me a while to get this to really click, but it's like until you believe that you really are worth more and that you really value these certain relationship, you will continue to attract what matches what you deep down believe you value. And often it's a pattern that's been repeated as we got from former relationships or our family of origin. I know it's tough to hear.
No, it really is, but it's a great introspection to also be able to acknowledge and be able to move forward or gain the tools to move forward and say, okay, I'm not going to repeat this pattern, because I've also had a lot of people reaching out and say, this has happened to me several times in a row. And so if it's becoming a pattern, it's not that you're a bad person, you're wrong or anything like that, but it's also being able to take the responsibility and say, where do I get to grow within me that I'm not yet stepping into powerfully enough? And I can acknowledge that for myself, is that 5 years ago, I was not the human I was today. I wasn't even posting my face on social media. That's how insecure and not worthy that I felt.
Really? Wow.
So imagine what I was calling it. I'm a completely different human by this point, especially to be able to step out and share my truth the way that I have. But also, I know how I attracted that in and how I will move forward in the future.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great, and it's hard. It's not something you want to acknowledge right away. You don't want to be like, you don't want to acknowledge and take responsibility for how did I call that in. That's their actions. That's not mine. But at the same time, there was a level that, just like you said, you were vibrating at that attracted that same energy.
I'm really proud of you, by the way, that. It's always such a blessing to me when I hear people being able to have that reflection, because it puts you in such a place of power. And the vibrational, but I was raised conservative Christian, so it's been interesting to come through this. So me too, I never would have pictured myself, I'm sitting here talking about energy. And I mean, my mom was a pastor, so I've had to really, and when you have that background, and I'm assuming a lot of listeners do, we're taught to be ashamed, or that we're being punished, or that we need to stay in relationship because, it was, everyone watched us at our wedding say I do. So by the way, I've been divorced twice. So let me just add that in here. So I repeated it too. And it's, and I had 3 kids in my second marriage, and I never, here's the thing though, I would never change any of it. And I was really ashamed of it for a while. I would lie about it for a while. And now I'm like, this is fully who I am. And I'm carry the shame, regret, guilt of not realizing sooner, or of being divorced twice, or staying to whatever it is. Don't put that on yourself too. You're always exactly where you're supposed to be. And you're right. Once you get to the place where you can not only say, I had a role in this too, of course, abusive situations, let's just put that in another set. That's a whole nother category, being traumatized. But when you're looking at repetitive patterns and agreeing to staying somewhere when you know deep down that it's not a fit for you, when you can even move past that and do what you did a little while ago, and actually, as your healing happens and you get your power back, and you can actually look back and say, thank you. That is the enlightenment of healing. And it is if I'd not gone through that, your soul's going, yes, you got it. But you have to be willing to stop allowing the low vibrational experiences, the low energetic, lack of integrity, energy to bounce off of you, stop embedding yourself in it to get to the place where your healing can happen and you can stop agreeing to the patterns, because it's not happening to you. As soon as you know, like, there's an allowance there, right? So pull up your bootstraps and like find an exit strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what should people be looking for when they're going into relationships? Are we looking for something? Are we just focusing on ourselves? What is the energy? If we want to attract a certain kind of energy, what do we have to put out? Like how do we even begin knowing?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. You're right. She was saying abusive situations aren't separate. I just want to say I don't want to disregard the trauma of abuse. And if that's happening, like, you need support. Say that again, Jen. I'm sorry. How can we
start to, no, you're good. How can we start to address the kind of energy that we want to call into a relationship? So how do we have to be? How do we have to, like, how do we start to call in a better, healthier relationship? And what are some of the tools and tactics that we're kind of looking for?
I love this. This is what I get to teach now. I'm got a course that just started yesterday, and I love this because I'm also writing a book on it. And it's like the practice is shifting your energy and shifting your systems. And so whatever you are foundationally rooted in your belief systems is what you're going to attract. So one of the most important things, one of the most important tools I give people that you can start with action right now is your language. How you speak about what you're expecting to show up and how you speak about yourself. All right. I've heard people time and time again saying, there are no good girls or no good guys. Oh, go figure. It figures that my blind date was an asshole or whatever. I mean, and so the more that you're giving validity and grounding to negative experiences and speaking that over your life, the more the universe is going to say, okay, well, then I guess you want more of that because your focus is. So remember, wherever you're focusing, wherever your energy is what you're going to be attracting. Whatever you're sitting and expanding is what you're going to attract. So the flip of that then is just continuously saying, and I mean, I'm single too, so I'm in this with all of you guys that are in this, saying, I know my person's out there. Like, I know I want to be such a vibrational match. In the meantime, like, I'm working on my stuff, but I'm going to speak positively over this. Like, so you sit and you like can feel them. You can feel what love, this is manifesting 101. You sit in the feeling of what you want. You sit in the feeling of adventure, fun, you know, excitement and surprises and passion, and you just feel it. If you can do that for over a minute, like a couple times a day, it enhances and enlarges the energy of what you truly want, instead of sitting and like talking about how hard it is to date or how miserable you are. Because the more you do that, your language lasts forever. The energy never goes away. Every word that's ever existed still exists in energy. And so just be so aware. Here's the great thing, like, your energy is so powerful. The more you start speaking it, then you'll start really, really believing it. And I mean, words becomes things. That you'll start realizing that you're attracting people that match you more, and people will start falling away that don't match you. So that would be the number one thing that I would tell people to shift. You know,
yeah. I love that. And that's like exactly how I even speak into the body. I mean, if we're continuing to tell ourselves over and over again how bad our pain is, how much it's like exploding in my back, and what we're saying, we're actually putting the body into this protective mode even more, and possibly increasing the symptoms around that pain. So it's the same thing. It's like how we're talking. Is it positive? Is it negative toward what we want to attract into our lives? It's the same thing. I mean, it so mirrors what's happening within the body as well. So I love how you're like bringing that to the surface so that hopefully people can start to build both those connections.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, it goes hand in hand. It really, you can tell your body how to feel. I fully agree. And it's like, you know, the pain, again, like, get your help if you're traumatized or abused, but the more we're sitting and talking about how angry we are and how bitter we are, all of that language, and it's okay to do that in like a safe space. Like, get it out, girl, and get out.
Yeah.
You do. When you've been traumatized, like, you've got some poison in there, be with your counselor, with your besties, you know, get it out until it doesn't feel like it needs to come out. I mean, that is necessary. But once you're ready and you can move into the world with that positive energy, you're a freaking badass creator. I mean, you're going to be creating what's coming to you. And, you know, I've had to check. So, like, for instance, my ex, he wrote a book and he spoke very unkindly of me. And it came out like 2 years ago. And it was like, and here I am teaching this. And so the biggest thing that I teach, because I had to go through it, and I know it energetically, is intent. So as you're moving forward and you have to deal with running into an ex or, you know, being asked questions about that situation, I always would stop and say, okay, I was asked then to write another book about him, or I was asked to be interviewed by magazines, and like
I kind of respond and everything.
Yeah. And we all know, like, you can do some damage if you want to. But the thing is, I had to keep checking. This is where my mom, being a pastor, like really helped me, because she would stop and say, Karin, like, go down to your spirit and check, like, what is your motive? If your motive has anything to do with shaming another person, you're going to get that karmic cycle, spiritual law, whatever you want to call it. It is going to be returned to you. And if you want, so I had to like, and it was hard. It was hard.
I can imagine.
Well, for all of it, like we all have our own level of whether it's your next door neighbor or someone that you work with, or it's on social media, whatever it is. It's all the same pain and the same, I think, pressure, or same temptation, right? But if we can lead with an intent, with integrity, and we just speak from a place that's filled with power and light, truth, with no intent to shame any particular person or a gender or anything, but just like empower people, we are then radiating with so much truth. So then as we move forward, even though we've been hurt and we've come through our healing, we're going to be attracting someone that matches that and already has that belief system too. And it's like magic. Like I can't wait for that to happen. So
right. And I think that's
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's so important and so huge, and it's hard when you've left something you feel burned in. It's hard to not want to make everyone around you understand, that person is bad, and we're like, all of that, and but we also have to understand where you put your energy is where you stay. And so if I put my energy over there and worry about what they might be saying and what they might be doing and how they're responding, that's where I'm staying. I'm staying in the victim mode of it. I'm staying in no control, because you can't control what someone else is going to say and how they're going to respond. And you stay in that anger. And I've had people reaching out to me who this similar thing has happened years ago, and still I can feel the anger. I can feel how they feel burned and scorned and upset. And I feel for that, because I get it. But if you're right, if you're not in a place where you're allowing that to come out in that very healthy way, it's going to stay stuck in a place where you can't control, because you can't control what another person does and how they respond and what they're going to do or say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, you're so right on. And not only are you then stuck, but you're magnifying, with this very thing that you're focusing on. Literally, you're exponentially magnifying. So if people want to be in that, and I know I've done it, like, you're going to attract a lot of people that want to sit on the couch and like complain about that. So what happens then is that grows, but the place of the higher spiritual plane, of course, find your safe place to do it. But when you rise up and you're living in the place of service, where you're trying to live, and you're living in a place where you want to change the attraction in your life, you know that you want to start focusing. And I agree. I love it you said that, because it's, one of the biggest things coming out of relationships where you've been hurt, whether it's a lover or a friend or family, you're continuously saying to yourself, it's not about me. It's not about me. That is about them. And there's it's literally taking the backpack of blame, or taking it, like not carrying it.
Yeah.
That is about them and not about me. That's a projection of whatever is going on inside of them, which is always rooted in fear. Always. There are two emotions in the world that everything comes from: fear or love. And when someone's rooted in fear, there's a deep insecurity, and there's a struggle, there's a pain. Going through something that is, they're caught in a cycle. And I agree, like, you can choose to go back and cycle that out of their presence, and then you're magnifying in your life, but that's keeping you stuck. I love that you said, like, you're not going to go anywhere because you can't control it.
Yeah.
Choosing to step into your light, and then opening the door to something new, and knowing that whatever's going to come is going to be a better match for you. And then also being able to send that person into light, like wrapping. I do prayer work with clients where I will wrap them in the white of God and literally like sever. You can like do energetic severing of cords that still feel painful, and just ask that they be held and that their healing happen, but separate from yours. And then, of course, do your work. Like, get your healing and honor your body and look where your body's hurting in your heart, and then a purity moving forward.
I want to speak into that a little bit too, because like how soon do you suggest people start focusing on like, oh, make sure they're okay and they're healing, and I'm going to wrap them in light and I'm going to do that? Because I know when people tried to rush me into that in like 2 days after it happened, I was like, no way, I can't see that. And so where, like, is there a certain spot along the healing process that you get to start acknowledging that? Do you acknowledge yourself first? Like, what is appropriate? Because also a lot of people want to rush you through the healing process and say, you're good, it's great to know, move on,
Yeah, very frustrating when you're hurting. People are like, you're so pretty, you're so talented, you're going to be fine. And you're like, oh my gosh. But obviously none of that really matters when you're hurting. So, this is part of the growth process, because it's part of you learning how to love yourself again. And by declaring your own process of TLC and healing, you are declaring to yourself and to the world that you are worthy and valuable. So no rushing it, because I find that people, like, they want you to feel better, right? So they will, but it's done out of love. It's they want you where they are, but they're not emotionally in, like, the emotional pain of a breakup. Like, when you've been there, like, it's heavy, and it depends on the amount of trauma that you've had. It depends on if if some of this was from your family of origin, like a lot of times when pain has been reopened from unhealed pain or another relationship or family of origin or other traumas that we've had, if there's a trauma history, that taps into something really deep, and then what happens is maybe it was never healed, and then it comes up. That's what I wrote about a lot in the Fatherless Daughter Project. So, it depends on the depth of the pain. If it feels trauma, anyone that's trying to rush you, just say thank you, but I've got my own timeline. So don't worry. Don't forget that, like, there's Kubler-Ross did that whole thing on the stages of grief.
The stages of grief,
right? They're not like concrete and stone, but are stages, right? And they're cyclical. They're not linear. And my friend just added anxiety. She just wrote about Claire Bidwell Smith, the anxiety, the missing stage of grief, because they're like, you bargain and you get angry, and then there's sometimes depression's usually first, and then you'll have some hope come in, and you try to sometimes there'll be a need to get revenge, and so all normal. So here's the thing with that, like, just give yourself grace. You're exactly where you need to be. I would say, I mean, for me, it took me years out of my first one, which I look back and I'm like, I want to help people find a pathway that it's not years. I mean, months. Months. Like, don't rush out and go get on a date like the first 2 weeks. But if you feel like having fun and like someone asks you to go have dinner, then it's okay. I mean, it's totally okay. But like, when you're leading, so this is what you check with. When you're leading with a sense of fear or a sense of lack, like you don't feel complete because that relationship's gone, which is how you feel. Like, you feel like part of your body's missing and you've been with that person for a long time. So when you're leading and going and dating, just be aware of what, if you're trying to fill a void, and no shame, because that's the natural experience. But once you can get to a place where you're actually okay, like either way, which would usually take several months, I would say like 3 to 6 months. If you've been really traumatized and there's some old wound that you feel, I mean, I would say 6 months, but it doesn't mean you can't go on a date. It doesn't. Here's the deal. When you don't need to lead at dinner with a conversation about how hurt you were, you're so much better. But hey, I mean, really, like, once you need to stop telling the story, like, a lot of the healing has happened. But I mean, no people that are doing that, because it just means you still need to process. Because the reason that the storytelling is important in a safe space is because you can't make sense of it until you tell it enough that somehow your brain has made sense of it. Pain triggers something in us that it's not matching our soul's vibration, so it doesn't know where to go. So it kind of bounces around. And you're like, I gotta tell this again, and like, I just need to be heard. That's why because people, her main thing was like, people need to be heard and know that they've been validated. Someone that you know is going to validate you to the extent, I mean, at least so therapy, they say you need, I mean, at least, I would say 15 sessions. I mean, if you feel like you've got some trauma there. But after You no longer really need to tell the story. Still have fun in the meantime. Like, don't hold up, don't isolate. Please still say yes to a lunch date or a dinner date. Like, go. It's okay if you still go have fun. Like, really, have some normalcy. But once you're in that place of neutral, and that's no longer the first thing you're thinking about or the first story you need to tell, like your energy field is being cleared.
Yeah.
But my point was your process in that, and the love that you're showing yourself to just work your way through it from a place of self-love is adding more layers of love to you that then others will feel, and the next person is going to feel that fullness of you.
And I think that's so important for people to hear, because sometimes it's like you don't know that extreme pain or that hurt until you've been through it. So knowing that, I get it, it might seem a lot when the person needs to like say the story, but just opening a safe space for them to be able to feel like they can, whether you need to understand it or anything, like just knowing that that is normal. So allow your friend, allow your family to feel that open space and feel safe to be able to share as many times as they need to. It's not that you need to fix it. It's not that you need to tear into that other person. It's just that they need to feel supported in a safe space to be able to share again and again as many times. And to be honest, like even myself, I feel like I didn't create enough of that space for other people until I went through it and I was able to see myself.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, it goes for anything that's traumatizing in life. I mean, whether it's death of your parent or whatever, you have a depth of understanding once you've been through it, and you really don't. But by having conversations like this and letting people know if someone is close to you is hurting, like, don't try to fix it. Don't tell them something silly like they're pretty, they're going to be fine. Just need to get laid, or whatever it is that people say. There's no simple answer. I mean, there isn't. And I know you want to rush that person because it's hard to sit with someone's pain, but the only thing that they need from you is just for you to sit and hold it.
Yes.
You're exactly right. So just if you have someone around you, and if you're the person that's hurting, like, ask them to watch this or just tell them, just say, here's all I need, and I just need like 30 minutes. Can I just talk for 30 minutes? I mean, I have friends that, like, we've just said, I'm just going to leave you a message on your phone. You don't even have to listen to it. Just let me put this somewhere, or they'll listen to it later. And I mean, I have a pact with a couple friends, and I've loved that, like bawling my head off, just out, and then you feel like such a release. That is a helpful thing you can do for someone. That's love.
Yeah. And even like, I remember saying like, okay, I may go out tonight, but just know if I go out with you guys, I might cry. I might not be okay, or maybe I might not want to go out last minute. And everyone was like, okay, no problem. Open to the experience. Like, everyone just allowed space for me to move through my process. And I'm like extremely grateful, and I'm extremely blessed. And I hope that also people can hear this and know that they can ask for support the way they need to, because not everyone, like you said, is going to know how to sit with that. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So just asking and for support, your people are doing it out of love. So if they're rushing you, or they're saying something, or they don't know how to hold space, ask for what you need, and that's totally okay to be able to do as well.
Yeah, I mean that and by honoring, I mean, it's asking and then honoring yourself. So for you, so if someone's going through this pain, whatever the grief is around, and they change their mind last minute, like, hold back that like frustration and just give them, it's grace. It's grace.
Yeah.
And I know that you're empowering people to act what they need, because people, unless they've been through it, they do not know. Right? So it's nothing to do with like that they don't love you enough. You're born knowing this, unless we're born on super enlightened levels. Like, people don't know, but like you just said, once they go through it, I remember calling friends and being like, oh crap, I am so sorry. I didn't realize what you were through.
That's what I did too. Yeah.
How did you do it? But also, like, honoring yourself if you're in a place of pain, like honoring, if you're headed out the door and your spirit's like, you know what? It was enough that we got dressed, but now, like, we're exhausted and you need to be sleeping. It's
yes.
You're drinking your water. You know what I loved? I mean, talking to you as a physical therapist, like I think one of the biggest pieces is working it out through your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like your body, you might need to take, like I went and took boxing classes. I mean, I
Yep.
needed to bust the shit out of something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, and I started running, you
Mm-hmm.
know, do yoga and Pilates because my body calls that in. But like whatever your body needs, maybe you need to feel stronger, you need to go lift some weights. I mean, obviously, make sure it's medically safe for you to do whatever it is. But listen to what your body will ask you to work this out some way.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, listen to your body in a place of stillness as well. Because it was a huge compassion for me to, for the first 2 weeks, basically not move. I'm a person who works out and moves on a daily basis. So for me to then sit and not go work out and not go sweat was actually a really, like, that's not me. But also I was in a place of honoring. And whatever my body was telling me and whatever I needed is what I needed. And I was okay with having compassion for where I was at. And so I would say, like, listen, take time to sit with yourself and listen. And sometimes that means going out in nature. Maybe all of a sudden you want to go for a run. Maybe all of a sudden, like getting grounded too, and or moving through water is really good to also move energy through your body and experiences of what you're feeling. I was told to do that by a somatic therapist as well. And being able to find, somatic therapist means someone who's going to find it within your body, right? And be able to find where the emotions are trapped and how you get to move through that. That was super supportive for me as well through this. And it does get trapped in areas that we don't even understand. Like a lot of sexual trauma can get trapped in hips. And you feel like I'm stretching my hips and I'm doing so much, but sometimes it's acknowledging it in a different way and connecting the emotion to what you're feeling in your body.
Mm-hmm. That's so, you're giving people so many good tips. Yeah, the water is huge. I love it. You got that. Also, like Epsom salt baths,
Mm-hmm.
and very healing. You need to be putting it in your body. But the point about being in stillness, obviously, is, I mean, and no shame on yourself if you do need to stay in bed for a little while. So of course, there's a point. So if you need for 2 weeks just to hole up, or you just want to sleep on Saturday, or you just really, I mean, we've all done it, and I agree. Like the body needs to recover sometimes and needs to go into hibernation to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this has lasted more than, let's say, if we're going on 3 or 4 weeks. Definitely, if you're going over a month and you're like really isolated. Actually, in the book that I wrote, the number one coping mechanism that was not good was isolation. Um, that women tended to do. Now, I don't mean what you're talking about. That is a
Right. That's different.
beautiful act of TLC. So just make sure that once, if you're disconnecting and it's been weeks and you haven't, and literally do not want to go outside, like there's depression setting in and you need to go, get help wherever it feels right for you. But honoring that place of quiet, honoring sometimes being by yourself, having your good cry, the tears that they show are different that you're releasing when it comes to this kind of grief. They're different than tears that happen when, you're putting contact. There is a chemical release. And I would always tell myself, there's an old Native American proverb that says there's like a number of tears to each pain. So I would just say to myself, okay, so at one point these tears are going to run out. Like the more I just let it go when it's time to let it go, and I just need to be alone, and honoring that silence and honoring your emotions is the way to get through them. I mean, people say my most hated response to people is just get over it. You need to get over it. Like you never get over things, you get through them, and they become a part of you. So it's moving through it, and going back to what you asked before about the stages and your readiness, like you're going to have some great days. You're going to hear a song and you're going to want to roll the windows down, and you're going to have a sense of freedom and excitement. And then, don't be surprised if 2 hours later you're home and you hear a different song and you're like, oh my God, or you see a commercial and you go back to that. Like, so honoring that like ebb and flow and having grace and compassion with whatever is coming up in you, honoring your strength in those beautiful moments when you're feeling strong again, honoring your sadness when it's a beautiful thing. Sadness means that you loved and love. It's temptation. The deeper, honestly, the deeper the pain is, really is how deep your love was. I mean, that's weird to say, but I'm honoring that. It just means that you invested yourself fully. And so the body just, and the heart and the soul just need to regroup and redefine who they are as a unit without this other person. It takes honoring.
I love that. Gosh, I feel like there's so much more I want to talk to you about. We only have 15 more minutes before it's going to cut us off. But I do want to go into, if someone is in a relationship right now, how do they know how to start listening to intuition? Because I know, especially for me, it was something that I was pushing down, and I was saying, I'm not yet understanding enough. I'm not yet compassionate enough. I need to learn more. I need to grow more. And all of those things are great things you want in a relationship. You want to grow, you want to learn, you want to understand and have compassion. But at what level is it that you're not honoring your core values and intuition? And at what level is it that you're just doing the work and you're growing?
Yeah. So actually, I have something free that's going to answer some of this. I'm going to give to any. I think my assistant's going to put a link up. It's at drkarin.com/red flags. It's an article that it's a checklist that I've written. The top 15 red flags that a relationship may be toxic and that you might need to listen. So there are red flags that sometimes we ignore around behavior and around whether you're being treated with respect. Okay, so you're in a relationship that it's a matter of equality, right? So
yeah,
you're noticing that your light is being dimmed or that you're being disregarded, and you feel that you're agreeing, and people notice that you're changing, and you can feel that you're becoming a smaller version of yourself. So that is contraction. So your intuition, your soul's voice speaks to you through contraction and expansion. All right, so there's the link right there. Thank you. Your soul is going to speak to you. So contraction is your intuition, your soul, whatever word you want to put on it. It is your soul's voice saying, this is not in alignment, in sync with who you are as a soul being. So when you start to feel, you'll feel down here, like right at your diaphragm, you'll feel a tightness, okay? That means that what is happening in that moment is not match your truth, all right? So when you're feeling bad about something, pay attention to that core feeling, because your body will contract. I mean, I've seen it energetically. The opposite of that is when you're feeling great around someone, you're feeling honored and loved, standing in both of your truths and their openness, you feel a sense of expansion and freedom, openness, and it feels light. All right. Negative relationships are heavy. They're keeping you up at night. You're not sleeping like you were. You're not eating like you were. You know, your body will tell you that you're getting sick more. I mean, I would lose my voice like every 6 months, which is your throat chakra completely fine. Literally, or you're having like you said, sexual trauma can be held down, you know, in the lower half, and then you can have gut issues, you can have neck and jaw issues. I mean, your body physically will give you messages, but your spirit's message, they're all interacting with each other, will come through a contraction or an expansion. So the way to listen to their intuition is I teach them 3 steps. It's the same step 3 times. Whatever question is, like whether it's, is this match my truth, or what do you want here? What do you want here is the big one that I use the most. You ask yourself 3 times, and the first time you ask yourself, what do you really, like I would say, Karin, what do you really want here? Is this really your truth? The first time what will come up is like what they want or what other people expect. Swipe it out. Ask again, is this my truth? What do I really want here? Is this a match? And usually what will come up again is expectations or fear of getting it wrong, fear of not being, fear of feeling guilty around other people, fear of disappointing people, or swiping that out. The third time, I tell people to follow their breath down to their spirit, right up near your diaphragm. Ask again, what do you really want here? Does this match my truth? And before you have a chance to run it up through your monkey mind, your soul will either open or shut. You'll feel a yes. And that's your intuition. That is your gut. Or you do that and learn to swipe away what everyone thinks, no matter if you've gotten married and it means you're going to be leaving, or if you're not going to go on that trip, even though it's been paid. Whatever, who cares about the guilt piece? the peace that matches your truth, your soul will speak to you with an expanded light feeling, and that's your intuition's voice.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. That would be so supportive. I hope really people like take that in and practice that. And I think it gets stronger with the more that we practice, right? So this doesn't have to be just in romantic relationships. This can be in business. This can be in whatever you're working through currently, and start to practice that feeling and embodying that and allowing that intuition to speak to you and listen. That's amazing. Super beautiful. Thank you.
It's if you're in something out of obligation, like there's a contraction on obligation because there's guilt attached to that. If I leave, people will judge me. I mean, your body, if it feels good, expansion. You're in the right. Even though relationships take work, I mean, it doesn't mean every time it's something.
Totally.
But more than not, if you're literally residing in a place where you are miserable or you are consistently being like checking, or you're feeling crazy, or you know you're not being told the truth, like your soul is going to tell you again. Contraction, feeling in your gut, your body's going to release cortisol. It is going to tell you. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
It's up to you if you want to keep doing that dance, like around, I don't know, the third, fifth, seventh time, like you've been shown what's going to happen here. So I tell clients, like the best predictor of future behavior is relevant past behavior. People can have spiritual things, they can hit rock bottom and change, but they have to realize that they have to want to change.
Mm-hmm.
Best predictor of future behavior is relevant. Like if you stay in a relationship that is hurting you, you will keep experiencing what has happened. So the benefit of making a shift in your life needs to outweigh whatever the payoff is that you're getting by staying in. And so like, what's the payoff here? Like, what's getting? Why am I still staying? And there's, again, like no judgment. Sometimes it means there's a big income. Sometimes it means you get to go on trips. Makes you feel special. You get to live in a big house, or maybe, whatever it is, or it makes you just feel loved, and you're too afraid to be by yourself, and there's a false sense of security. Look at your payoff. Like, why am I really here? And if there's no judgment on it, like we're going to look at this with full compassion for you. No judgment on the just look in. There's a very Buddhist perspective. Just observe. Wow, that's the payoff. Okay, like I'm not going to judge that. I'm human. Like that's interesting. That's a big need for me right now. So is this really that valuable that I'm going to keep doing this for the next 1, 2 years? What's going to be the payoff of that? As the story continues. So I do a lot of exercises around going to the end of the story, because often there's a cycle of, like, especially a cycle of abuse. There'll be a honeymoon period, and then apologies, and then, there'll be hearts and flowers, and then it'll happen again. And so the woman or the man will tend to stay because of that honeymoon period. Yes, and so I have a full compassion for it. So no judgment on it, as the body's learned that this payoff is enough because it makes you feel valuable. Until, like, I remember sitting in my doctorate program, I opened my book, and the cycle of abuse was there, and I'd never even heard of it. And I was like looking at the life I grew up in, and like my last marriage, and I was like, just having that piece of knowledge and awareness was so empowering for me. I was like, I'm not the only one, and I'm not crazy. Understand if this is just what you've learned to do. And so, going to the end of that story and then asking for that support and that help from other people, asking them someone that you love, what do you like, getting an honest opinion from people that are looking in, that know the whole that don't have like a skin in the game, but that will really reflect back to you. You know, it's important to get that support going forward.
And be able to listen to that, right? I mean, I had the closest people to me constantly warning me, and you don't know, you don't know, you don't know. You're not in it, right? I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's so important to ask for what you need. It's you know, one of the, on this checklist that I wrote, one of the things that I talked about was that people are starting to tell you, like, information is, so when your soul is ready to get the information, it will come to you. I can tell you to have that awareness, but it will be trickled to you. Like, you might find this thing, or you might be treated this way, or this story isn't adding up, or, you know, whatever it is that's not making, or it's a behavior. Maybe the person's rude to every waiter that you're around, or, you know, they're condemning your mother, or whatever it is. Like, you'll get that, but when your soul's finally ready for that awareness, it will call in the information. It's up to you whether or not you're going to throw the window open and see it in its fullness, or you're going to shut it and be like, the payoff for me is more than me having this awareness, so I'm going to choose it out until I'm ready. But that checklist that I wrote that is linked here, it really walks people through, like, explaining like each one and what's under it. Because the person, again, the other person's usually acting out of a need to control, and in fear, we are, you know, agreeing to be dimmed down versions of ourselves. But I mean, dumbed down, dimmed.
Yeah. So huge. Oh my gosh, we didn't even get into the one area that we wanted to tap into too, which was empath versus narcissism. Like, how do we know what's happening there? So we're gonna have to do another live together, I think.
That I will tell you that, yeah, that we can tease that, because that is like, it's an epidemic, I will say. And I want to say this too, just before we wrap up. I have so much compassion for both parties. I think that we're shifting so much energetic on our planet, the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement. I also have a lot of compassion for men that have been taught to behave a certain way, and that, like, literally feel like they have to behave a certain way because they've been taught to lead with ego. I think that we're really changing right now, and that it's part of like our responsibility being in service and everyone listening, like, to keep having these conversations and shifting it in a way that's not blaming or shaming. And yes, pain, but it's like we all collectively need to move forward so we can move into relationships with integrity and with harmony and respect, and be honest with each other, and understand that we're all carrying these stories and these backpacks from what we've been taught growing up, and we can safely unpack them with each other in relationships, having compassion for both sides, so that pain is recurring. I think that we're really shifting. So I just wanted to say that, like, I love that this is happening. Coincidence. We're part of literally a huge vibrational shift on the planet. It's happening.
Yeah. And it comes not from one person, but it comes from continual people continuing to open up and not feel shame to share their story. And I want people to understand that too. Like, you are not shamed for telling your truth. You're not shamed for living in your story and learning from your story. And it's when we get stuck in trying to shame someone else because of our story that it doesn't rise us all together. But it's when you share it from a place of truth and responsibility that we're all able to then learn and start to shift this conversation and bring it to the surface more, which I think it's blown up so big for me the way it has, is because it's something that doesn't get to be talked about very, very often.
Yeah, you give people permission, and that's a really beautiful thing. And when it's done at a high vibrational level, and it's done with passion and from and people have permission to finally take that lid off, and they see the strength through you and they can channel that through themselves. It is such a beautiful piece of the healing process. They can start taking those steps forward and let go of that toxicity that they're holding. And I fully agree. Like when it's done, integrity and grace and compassion, like that is movement. And collectively, we're all doing this together. So yay. Keep open.
Yes. I'm so excited, and I'm so grateful that you came on and we're able to share so much powerful knowledge with people, just to start to understand, and maybe they will start to dive into their mindset just a little bit more, dive into relationships of all kinds, and start to listen and understand how to truly listen to their intuition, because I want people to understand that you know and you're trustworthy, like beyond belief. Like you can trust yourself, you can trust your intuition, Yeah,
that's my biggest thing too. I mean that's everything. That's everything, and it's in you. You were born with it, and no power to make decisions for you. Like you have the knowledge inside of you. So yes, trust your intuition above anything. It will never guide you the wrong direction, and it's always it wants you to find a place of love and happiness. So yeah, listen to that in your gut. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And you guys need to go follow this beautiful woman. She just amazing, beautiful knowledge. Screenshot this and go to the link, since you can't go to it directly from here, but go back later and check it out for sure. I mean, just thank you. And I'm excited to have you on possibly in the future too.
That's a great conversation to have. Thanks everyone who weighed in. Sorry, I was really passionate about it, but we can go back and answer questions if you put them in my other or yours. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, this is about to end. So I hope you learned a lot. Go back and watch it. She dropped amazing knowledge, and definitely check out the link. I will catch you guys soon.